Hi guys. My voice is a little weird because I actually have a cold right now. But yeah, welcome to podcast. As you can see, I'm no longer alone. Um but yeah, no, this is like a stolen cat. It's a neighborhood cat and hi. He came with a collar and so I like texted the owners and the owners was like, "Oh yeah, he's our cat, but he's not really our cat because he's the neighborhood cat. We can't keep him indoors to save our life." And so he was really dirty, so I gave him a bath and I gave him some chicken from the chicken soup that I made and he's really happy and cuddly and I cleaned his ears. And so now I have a little companion, which I mean, this is like basically what I've been dreaming about, right? Like having my own little cozy space and having a cat again. And yeah, I miss my babies, but my best friend is actually staying in my apartment temporarily right now because she needs some space from her husband. They're having a hard time. And I was like, okay, don't worry, like come to my place. And so my cats have someone to take care of them. So I'm really happy about that, like a live-in nanny. But anyways, I haven't spoken to you guys for like 2 weeks, maybe, I think. And I had my birthday. We went to Lake Como for the first time in my life. We went to Naples for a dance camp. Like a lot has happened since I last spoke to you guys. Last time I did the podcast, I told you that I basically we were having a really hard time. We were having a really hard time in our relationship. We were having a hard time in our just like our life, adjusting to the situation. And we were going through a really rough patch. I was like really triggered in Italy. And I told you guys that I had written that letter to my ex and through therapy had realized, that I needed to write this letter. And oh, and then also for a moment, I thought that I would make the podcast a little bit more private, um, out of respect for my partner, who actually doesn't follow me on Instagram or watch these podcasts because when we got into a relationship, we agreed that, if he's wondering what I'm up to, he can just text me, he can just call me. Like, I know my life is on Instagram, but it's still my business. And like I go into so many personal things in the podcast, sometimes before I've even had a chance to talk to him about it. And so I just felt like it was quite intense, to share with all of you in a podcast that I had written a letter to my ex and shared that letter. And, my partner wasn't gonna be reading that letter or listening to this podcast where I speak about it. And that was that time. That's why I made it more private. I just took it off of the public list. And then something really, really big happened. And then I realized that it's fine to put it back into a public domain. I'm going to explain it all like now in just a second. But um, where do I start? So, first of all, long story short, you guys know that we were really having a lot of trouble holding space for each other because it was this classic, like he wasn't at 100% and I wasn't at 100%. And when we added our percentages together, it was not 100%. So like, you know how they say, like if you only have 30, your partner's gonna be like, no problem, I got you, I'm gonna bring 70, or like vice versa. But we were both at 30, so 30 plus 30 is 60. And we just couldn't, yeah, we just didn't add up to 100, and we had no game plan for how to deal with the fact that we were both so low in our percentages. And so we were just like fighting nonstop. Like everything triggered him, everything triggered me. And I think like a lot of you guys who have been in serious relationships know that there are periods sometimes where you feel like you can't even get through a day without a fight. Like you can't even maybe get through like an hour without a fight. Like everything was just felt so triggering and abrasive. And I mean, now I'm much higher than 30%. One, because I'm living in my own space now. Two, obviously, because no, but like I get to have freedom to do stuff, to go to Milan. I'm meeting like a friend of a friend who lives in Milan next week. You know, like I just have a lot more freedom, and I didn't realize how important that was to me, and how I was basically like becoming neurotic and like hyper dependent emotionally and physically on my partner because of the living situation when we first got to Italy, living with his family and stuff. Anyway, long story short, like it got to a point where I think I told you guys in the last podcast, like it got so bad that I literally booked a ticket. I booked a flight to go back to New York. And I kind of wanted to start the podcast there because it was very, 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 very like on the brink of ending. Like like we even said he even said to me, like, you know, I don't think I can do a personal relationship. I don't think I'm ready for this. I thought I was ready, but I'm really not ready. And it kind of, yeah, so and then we separated in terms of like the living situation. So it really felt like we just like broke up, you know, and which was devastating, number one, because uh, you know, it's already such a struggle over here, let alone like ending like a relationship. And he was like, um, you know, we still wanted to practice. Like he wanted me, that's when I booked my flight back to New York, you know, is when that happened. And he wanted me to stay and so we can continue our dance career. And like realistically, I'm like, of course I want to stay and continue to practice. But, you know, my inner child was like, wow, you know, and this again mirrored so much like all these similarities with my last relationship, because basically the same thing happened, but it lasted for 2 years, right? Like my ex pulled away personally. He started living separately from me, trying to take more space, promising that we could get back together eventually, you know, and make things work, not wanting to, you know, end the dance partnership. So I basically had to every single day dance with this man who I felt like was emotionally shut off from me, and who had rejected me and who had withdrawn from our relationship. And that lasted for like more than, you know, a year and a half, almost 2 years. And it was like torture. And I mustered every biomechanical tool that I could possibly have, you know, to make my dancing okay when the emotions and my actual like feelings were so painful all the time. So it kind of like was a little microcosm of that, what happened with me and my partner in Italy like a couple weeks ago. And it was so excruciating because I stayed, right? Remember I told you guys in the last podcast that I decided to be 100% vulnerable, 100% like supportive, you know, and even if somebody didn't want to be with me, that I would still stay and support him the best I could and give him what he really needed the most, which was to feel that he was still able to dance despite all the shit that happened to him. So I made that decision, which I had not made in my last relationship. So again, like I just feel like the universe is giving me the same tests to see if I will react differently. And I think I am. But anyway, comes my birthday, and I had a really weird birthday because I know you guys like saw that, you know, we did a bunch of fun things together and whatnot, but keep in mind, like we were actually broken up at that time. And I was just trying to like be appreciative and be grateful. And here was this boy who was still like making such a huge effort to make me happy on my special day, actually my whole weekend, because he also planned the trip to Lake Como the day after. But like something felt very strange to me because like even though we were living separately and we weren't technically in a romantic relationship anymore, you know, I just still felt how much he cared about me and how much he loved me. And like all the reasons that he was saying to me about why he felt like he couldn't make it work, like he was too young and he didn't have his shit together and he didn't know how to hold emotional space for me. And he didn't want to get into so many fights. He was conflict. I think I told you guys like the 80-20 rule from the last podcast. I don't know if I mentioned this, but he told me, and this is something I actually really learned from him. Like, I never understood this because I have a really large tolerance, high tolerance for suffering. Just like, I think that's just how I was raised. But he said, like, in a relationship, no matter if you love each other or not, if you are 80% of the time, you need to be 80% of the time positive and 20% of the time, hold on, let me, the book that has something really important in it, he took it, but I'll share with you guys the gist. And so, and he said, like, if that ratio is not there, so if you, for a long period of time or any period of time, you can decide, you are 80% of the time unhappy and 20% of the time experiencing positive emotions. That means that even if you love the person, it's not a healthy relationship, and you need to reconsider whether you want to be in this relationship. And it's funny because I never thought about it that way, because I was like, with my ex-partner, I was like so unhappy, but I just like could not end it. I was, let's continue, let's try again, let's try again, let's try again. Even though it was so unhappy, it was like 90-10, 90% of the time unhappy and 10% of the time. And so anyway, he was talking about all of these different reasons why, and it just felt very logical to me and reasonable, but from the head space, not from the heart space. I didn't really understand. I didn't know why. I just was extremely hurt and trying to still be supportive. Anyway, so when we were in Lake Como, we were sitting by this lake. It was like a kind of like there was a pool, and then it's a lakeside bar. So there's a pool, and then there's a place where you can sit right next to the lake and go in the lake. It was really lovely. And we were just talking because I was still so upset, by what had happened between us, and couldn't really understand what was going on. And we were just like talking. And then all of a sudden, and this was like the bomb dropping, he goes, I think the real reason why I felt like I couldn't continue in a personal relationship with you is because I felt like you never really loved me. And I was like, dude, I'm in Italy for you, because of your situation. Like, I could have gone home, like, I was just like, I couldn't understand. But this was such a shocking statement because he had never said anything like this before in his like logical reasoning explanation for why he didn't want to be in a relationship. So he was like, yeah, I just feel like you really loved your ex, but you never really loved me. You never really loved me. And I just like sat there speechless, like, and stunned, because in my mind I really, really tried, to love him. And I think that he's the man that I've loved the best out of anyone that I've been with. And I've grown so much in my ability to be supportive, to hold space, to consider others. And I'm just like, what is going on? Like, why is he saying all of these things? And and previously he had also mentioned that he felt like I was selfish, and that I didn't really think about how he was feeling and all of this stuff when we were fighting a lot. I told you in the last podcast. Anyway, long story short, we exited the lakeside bar area, and we went to have some dinner, and then we went onto a boat, and this boat was supposed to take us back to the dock, like in Como, because we were in a different village. It was supposed to take us back in like 15 minutes, 20 minutes, but it took like an hour because we took the slow ferry. And it was so beautiful because the sun was setting and we were just on the water. And suddenly it dawned on me. I was talking with a girlfriend who knew me, and she also was the witness of my wedding, my court wedding with my ex-partner. So she's been with me for like a really long time. She knows me very well. She's also good friends with my ex. And so we were just talking a little bit, and she's like, you have to really think about why you really fell in love with Anton. You really need to think about why you really love him. Like, what's the reason? And it suddenly dawned on me. It dawned on me, like, why he said to me that he felt like I never really loved him. And so everything that had been happening, like our fights, our like his decision to end our personal relationship, it all had to do with this. This was the root of it. He actually told me the root of it. And later, a, a few days later, we were on our way to Naples. But okay, actually, I should probably tell you that. So first, I'm going to tell you what happened after it dawned on me, and then I'm going to tell you what dawned on me, because the next letter, the next really important letter, like probably the two most important letters I've ever written in my life is the first one to my ex 6 years after I met him and 1 year after our split that I read you last time. And the second most important letter I've ever written in my life so far is to my current partner. And I wanted to read this letter to you because I actually read it to him out loud in Naples on the first night. And I wanted to read it to you guys because after I wrote that letter to my ex, after I had that therapy session and wrote my letter to my ex, I felt like a wave of peace inside of me, but it wasn't the only thing that needed to happen. The other missing piece of this last chapter of my healing was coming clean with my current partner. And I'll read you this letter. It's a little bit longer than the one to my ex, but dear Anton, when I realized on this trip in Italy that our relationship might be over, and you told me by the lake that the real reason was because you felt I never really loved you, it shook me to my core and forced me to understand why you felt that way. I realized I haven't been truly honest with myself or with you. When you said a few months ago that you felt there were 3 people in this relationship, you were right. The healing that I've been working on since we met has been letting go of my ex. He was my first true love, and for a long time, I thought he would be the only one, which is why I married him. Letting go has been a process, which is why you felt he was always between us. As our love was growing, the love I had for him was fading, but it was still there. However, the part that you may not know, which I was not honest with myself or you about, as you know, I was brought up to believe that failure is not okay. My marriage and my last partnership was the first time I really failed in my life, and it's been hard for me to accept my failure. Because I had so much self-blame, subconsciously I wanted to use my new relationship and partnership with you to redeem myself. I wanted to prove to myself and perhaps the world that another boy could give me his heart and dance and life, and this time I wouldn't fuck it up. This is why I needed you to choose me and love me and dance well next to me so much, because without these things, it would be impossible to redeem and forgive myself for my mistakes and rewrite my own history. This is probably why you felt that I was selfish and that I didn't really love you, because many of my actions were driven by fear and desperation and a need to make myself feel better about myself. After I suddenly realized all of the above by the lake, I accepted your decision to end our personal relationship because I realized how unfair I have been. The truth is, when we met, I probably also wasn't really ready to love in a healthy way. However, there is something else I realized by the lake, which is deeply true. As time went on, as I healed, as we got to know each other better, a genuine love for you did grow inside me. A love for who you are and not what you can do for me. There are many reasons why I love you, but these are some of the big things. I love your intellectual capacity and the way you use your mind and learn. I love your positivity and resilience. Even in the most difficult times, you can find and share happiness. I love your hunger for self-awareness and self-improvement. I love that you know the difference between unhealthy and healthy masculinity. I love your courage to be vulnerable and to be honest with yourself and others. I feel that my genuine love for you grows every day. I know that if we give it space and time and patience, it will grow even deeper, stronger, and more unconditional than anything you or I have ever experienced. This is why I'm so happy you changed your decision and opened your heart again. I have chosen you to grow in love with, not my ex or anyone else, and I will make an effort every day to nurture this love so it can be pure, healthy, deep, and long-lasting. This is why I wanted to be honest with you in this letter, because true love starts with complete and utter honesty, and I do truly love you. So after I, so before Naples, when we were on this boat, so I read this letter to him on the first night of Naples. Like I read it to him. I didn't want him to read it. I wanted him to like look at me and like feel my energy. But my energy had already changed on that boat ride in Lake Como when I realized these things that I had just told you about in this letter. And I told him that I understood why he felt that way and that I accepted his decision to end our personal relationship, because prior to that I wasn't really accepting it because I couldn't understand it. And it was like the most magical boat ride of my life because it was on my birthday. I realized these things on an energetic level. I came clean with myself and with him about these things. And he had not like touched me or kissed me or held my hand or done anything romantic with me for like more than a week. And somehow on that boat ride, when I realized these things and my energy changed, he like gave me this hug from behind and kissed me. And it was kind of like I knew he had changed his decision and he had opened his heart to me again. And I had understood that like everything that he had been doing was because he was so hurt. But because, you know, because I was basically lying to myself all of this time that I didn't love my ex anymore and that I was ready to open my heart to someone new when I really wasn't. And, there were these and my partner like did his best to trust me and to love me, even though I wasn't being honest with myself. And it had always hurt him that there was this dishonesty that was between us. And yeah, like um when I read him this letter in Naples, I asked him if he's okay and if he's hurt and if he, and that I understood if he didn't want to be in a relationship with me anymore, for sure, after this letter and after I was open and honest. And I kind of like 85% of me thought that that would happen, because it's like, I'm basically telling him, like, I'm basically telling him that I'm still in love with my ex, that in a way, and that, you know, it's uh it's hard for me to let him go and he's still between us. And I'm basically telling him that, and also the other thing is like my friend told me, the girlfriend that was talking to me in Lake Como, she said like, Anton needs to understand that, you were married to your ex, like you were married to him. You thought that he was going to be the father of your children. That's another level, of love and commitment. And it's hard to compare the new love that you have now with that kind of love, right? But it doesn't mean that the love that you have now can't grow to be that way. Yeah. And so basically, like, of course, I think if I was in my partner's shoes listening to this letter, I couldn't deal. I wouldn't be able to be in a relationship because I would be so insecure. And, but Anton told me the first thing he said was, this letter didn't hurt me. And I said, why? And he said, because I knew all of these things already. Like, I'm just really glad that you told me and you were honest with yourself about it too. And then he said something to me that I'm like, wow, he said, I think I understand that it's possible to be in love with two people at the same time. Never happened to me before in my whole life, and never could imagine that it would be this way or feel this way because it's so complicated. Feelings are so damn complicated. But yeah, that's actually the case. And as my love with my partner is growing, and it's growing so much because of all these experiences that we have where we're vulnerable to each other, like the fact that he could sit there by the lake and tell me, like, I'm in pain and I did this because I feel like you never really loved me. Like, that is such a vulnerable thing to say. And because of that, I'm able to like reflect on myself and learn how to be vulnerable in response. But yeah, as our love is growing, my love for my ex is fading. It's fading. I can feel it. And there's so like, and things after this, um, like I could call it a debacle, right? Because it's so dramatic. But after all of this, our relationship has been extremely peaceful, and we're spending nights together and we're doing things together and we're no longer fighting. And it's just like amazes me because of how close we were to everything ending. Like even the dance partnership, like I would bought a ticket to go back to New York regardless of dancing. I was like, I can't do this. I told him, I said, I did it before where I had to dance with someone who I gave my heart to and forsaken it, and he had forsaken it. And I know how painful that is, and the pain never goes away because when you see that person every day for dancing and you travel everywhere together and you spend so much time together, like the love doesn't go away. I was trapped with my ex relationship because of the dancing. And so I said to Anton, like, I really don't think I can do this, um, without like a serious break from you first. And I think that I'm so glad that I didn't leave. I spoke to like 3 or 4 girlfriends, like during that time, just because I wanted some kind of an outside perspective. And some of the girls were like, you don't deserve this, like you he's making you feel unsafe, and you need to be in a safe relationship. And they were completely correct in their way. And then there were some girlfriends who are like, you know see if you can be unconditionally supportive and see where that takes you, like, are you really gonna lose so much because of the support that you give him, and can you tolerate it, or can you accept it? So there were like a lot of different advices coming from different angles and stuff. And it's so funny, this cat. And in the end, I just went with my gut and I stayed. Um, and I'm so, 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 so glad I did, because if I hadn't stayed, if I went back to New York, I don't know, you know, that would have really hurt him. Because the thing is, it's just, there's so much misunderstanding and possible resentment that builds in a relationship. Like, I didn't even know, and he didn't even know at that time when he was emoting like crazy and making all these decisions, like breaking up. Like, he didn't know that the reason why he felt that way was because he was in pain, because he felt like, I didn't really love him, you know? Like, he maybe didn't even know at that time. And I certainly didn't even know. So it's kind of like, yeah, we just needed to get to a point where we could both understand and be vulnerable with each other. And I'm really, really glad that I stayed. Um, because we've made it to the other side, and it's so warm and so loving and I knew that something was up, because when a man doesn't love you anymore, he doesn't try. Like, he couldn't care less, and he made such a huge effort for my birthday from morning until night. And like, paid for everything, even though he barely has any money left. And I just felt like, you know, this boy really loves me, and if he didn't love me, why would he do all of these things? So anyway, oh my God, this is getting very long. Give me a second because I actually have to use the restroom. I'm like, and I'll be right back. It's actually good that I took a break because I was like, okay, what do I need to say before this podcast is finished? And I remembered like what I need to say. Um, I feel like these podcasts have been the place where I've been the most vulnerable with my community. And I feel like the thing that I talk about the most is my relationship. And one of the things that um, I came clean with myself and also with my dance partner about, maybe, is that the most important thing in my life is my relationship and my family. Um, I mean, he and I are not married or anything, but I think of him as my family. Uh, and it was hard for me to admit that to myself and to him because for the entirety of our relationship, because you know, I didn't want to be seen as weak, I guess, or like not ambitious enough or not hungry enough in dancing. Like you guys know how ambitious and hungry and driven I am in dancing. But the truth of it is that the most important thing is my love life. The most important thing to me is how happy I am and how healthy my relationship is. Um, and by lying to myself for a very long time that that wasn't the case was really against my authentic nature. I mean, like, here is this stray neighborhood cat, you know, like who I've bathed and like spoiled and cooked for and cleaned the ears of. And, you know, like this is what my inner child, my nature tends towards. Like, I'm, I think that all of the other elements of my personality, it seems like, that are maybe more superficial, like how driven, ambitious, problem solving, like micromanaging, controlling, organizing, leading, all of these things are more defense mechanisms. They're the ways that I've learned help me to survive in this world where I'm afraid that I won't be loved and that I'm afraid that I won't be accepted as I am. And so I've conjured all of these, I've perfected all of these compensation mechanisms or defense mechanisms. And on the outside, people really do have this impression. Like right now, it's funny because we're in Europe now, so we're going to these dance camps and taking lessons with these teachers, and we're going to another one soon in 10 days. And there's like a bunch of different teachers there that we're going to take lessons from, and I've even already heard that some of these teachers like don't like me, or they have a judgment of me. You know, like the industry, one of my coaches told me, thinks that I'm like a woman that's stuck in a man who's stuck in a woman's body. Um, and like there's just people who think I'm just very like self-absorbed, you can call it, agenda driven, self-agenda driven. So I'll step over anyone or do anything to achieve my goals. That I don't treat people like my partner as well. Like I have like a really, really, what's the word I'm looking for? I have a really questionable reputation because I think that my defense mechanisms and compensation mechanisms are so strong. They're so strong because like they're what's on the outside. They're what I show. And I don't show the world so easily, like the fact that I really care about loving and being loved. I really value my relationship above anything else. Um, I don't think that I could continue dancing with someone if we had had a serious relationship and it didn't work out, which is, by the way, one of the reasons why I'm like, in the future, if I ever have another dance partnership, I will not date my partner. If I really, if I really want to maximize the chances that this dance partnership will be successful. But unfortunately, I've already fallen in love. Not unfortunately, it just happened, right? Like we just are great. We have a great we have a great soul connection. And yeah, so it's hard for me to show to the outside world that what my inner child really looks like. Um, I think that ever since I got together with Anton, like I've already become very different than before. And I think that the impressions that people have of me are already changing. Not that it really matters what other people think of me, but I do believe that when you constantly give people the wrong impression because you cannot show your true, authentic, vulnerable self to the world, like that's a problem for me, like I don't care about other people's opinions of me, but I care about who I put out there, what kind of person I am for myself. Um, like I want to be proud of myself, and how I am to the world. And so, yeah, that's why the podcasts have so much personal stuff, because I think that's really what I care about the most, which doesn't, and like this is why I as I told you, my when my marriage ended and my last partnership ended, it was so traumatic for me, because I had made so many decisions, small, medium, and large, throughout that relationship that made it seem like I prioritized my business, that made it seem like I prioritized my dance results. But the reality was that the most important thing to me was my husband. And I didn't, I wasn't able to admit that to myself, and I wasn't able to admit that to him until everything was already over, and already over by more than a year. Like how crazy is that, right? And I was also afraid to admit that with Anton because he's so young, like for me to tell him that, I'm the type of person that prioritizes my relationship. I want to share love in our partnership. Um, there's always a chance for him to be like, well, I can't do that because I'm 21 and I really am more interested in building my career. And which all makes sense, right? Like, honestly, if I was dating a man who was that young, who wasn't interested and focused on building his career more than anything else, I'd be a little concerned a little bit, also. And so, but for me to accept who he is and for him to accept me, I have to give him a chance to accept me, which means I have to be vulnerable and honest. And when I said that, he was like, okay, I understand. And he told me, like, there's so many things that he told me recently that I just feel like, wow, like he's growing so much. Like he told me in Naples, we had like a little tiff, where I was kind of having a bad day and emotional. And I was like gave up during rounds and didn't do the third highlight of pasta. So we had like a little argument about that. Because he's like, you have to continue and like blah, blah, blah. And I was like, I don't feel good. I don't feel confident. I was having a bad day. Anyway, but after that was over, like it was over very fast. It wasn't even, you couldn't even call it a fight. But he told me, he's like, I'm really glad that, you have emotions. I wouldn't want to be dancing with someone who didn't have emotions, because then I'd be dancing with either a girl or a machine. And but I feel like I'm dancing with a woman who, deeply feels herself at all times, and I'm really happy for that. And he was like, I'm slowly learning how to deal with your emotions. And it's very interesting because I'll tell you guys a funny story and then maybe I'll finish there. Like how he was dealing with my emotions. So we were at the grocery market. He was helping me do some groceries, and I was talking about how like I started going on and on about how I get really I don't feel confidence to compete. Like I don't like to compete. I don't like to be compared to other people. I love to dance and I love to practice, but like competition is really um scary for me, because I just feel it triggers my inner child so much. And I'm trying to figure out like why I never had confidence on the competition floor and why I struggled so much. And I had to rely on biomechanics, but it never was like a deeply psychological, like I'm a star, I deserve to be here, like I love who I am, I love what I do. I don't feel like that ever. I can't remember the like one time that I felt like that on the competition floor. So I was like going on, and he was looking at me like, okay, and at one point, so in the beginning, he started giving me logical explanations. Like, I just don't think that, you practice certain tools enough to make you look confident on the floor, no matter if you're having a good day or a bad day, which is why you don't actually have confidence, because you know that you can't look good no matter what. It has to depend on your mood and whether your biomechanics are in place. And that puts a lot of pressure on your biomechanics. I was like, oh, first of all, this is like a really good explanation, right? I need to think about it, but I still wasn't feeling so great. And it kind of triggered me a little bit that, he was talking to me about what I wasn't doing, but I was keeping things in check. But then he was like, oh, okay, let me switch a tactic. Oh, baby, you're so beautiful. Like, you can just stand there and do nothing, and you will look competitive and beautiful and eye-catching and like blah blah blah. And I was like, this isn't really working either. And he's like, okay, let me change a tactic. And he was like, don't worry, like you can lean on me, you can depend on me, you can trust me, like look into my eyes, when you're not feeling confident, like because he likes to compete. He feels good on the competition floor. He's a really good competitor. And I was like, oh, okay. And I like it melted or whatever. And I just became like, so, and he was like, so that was what you needed? And I said, yeah. And he was like, okay. So the logical explanation, the fawning over me or like complimenting me, encouraging me, but then being like, don't worry, baby, I got you. Like, when you're not confident, like, don't worry, you can lean on me. That's what I needed. And it's then after he said that, I told him, like, you know what I realized? This is like, I think this is a quote that I came up with because it came from my head. I don't remember reading it anywhere, but I think that a man needs a woman to have confidence in him, but a woman really needs a man to have confidence in himself. So this is like, I don't know if this is true for all cases, but I've noticed, and I've told this to a few girlfriends and they completely agree with me. Like, women don't need men to have confidence in them. Like, I'm gonna deal with my own insecurities by myself, grow my confidence by myself or whatever. I don't need, but a man really needs his woman, his partner, to have confidence in him. If a woman does not believe in her man deep down or have confidence in him, he will feel that. He will really feel that. and he will react so badly. He will become a child. He will throw temper tantrums. He will just not be able to flourish. Men are very fragile in that way. They really depend on us. But women, like, we become really insecure when the man is insecure, because then we don't feel safe. And this is how I felt always with my ex, which is part of why it was hard for me to believe in him 100%, because I just felt that he was very insecure in himself, like throughout our partnership. But he pretended like he wasn't. So it's impossible for him to be vulnerable. And then it's also impossible for me to be vulnerable and say, like, I'm feeling really, really insecure and I feel really scared. And it was a mess. It was a mess with my last partnership. I won't go into that anymore. But I think that my partner now, of course, he has his own insecurities, just like everybody. But ultimately, he's quite sure of who he is, what he likes, what he doesn't like, what he wants, what he doesn't want, what he's okay with, what he's not okay with, what he needs to work on, what his weaknesses are, what his strengths are. So it's a lot, and he's very open and he can be vulnerable. When he is feeling insecure about something, he immediately tells me. Not immediately, let's say maybe after a week, but still, eventually he does. Like, he doesn't wait 6 years or never, right? Like, and so that helps a lot. And I think that, yeah, I think that's all for now. Maybe the next podcast, because things have calmed down in my personal life a lot, and I've learned a lot, and I've shared it with you guys in the podcast as much as I could. I mean, honestly, nobody ever teaches anybody how to be in a relationship, right? Like, we learn as kids because we watch models like our parents, and then we watch unrealistic models like television and fairy tales. I don't understand why people don't rewrite fairy tales for little kids that talks about how, like, I don't know, how a princess realizes that she's so beautiful, and because she's super sweet and kind and funny, and Prince Charming comes and he sees how beautiful she's on the inside, and they fall in love, and they both need to make a plan for when they're 30% each and not adding up to 100. And it's not happily ever after, it is happily until you stop working on your relationship. Like, I just, like, can someone rewrite some fairy tales for kids? Because I am still trying to figure out what the hell I'm supposed to be doing in a relationship, and I'm already 32. Like, yeah. And I still don't know what I'm doing. I still feel like I have no idea what I'm doing. I don't know when the next big thing is going to happen where I need to learn something. Look at my mosquito bites. I'm like, I stayed in Italy for you. It's just like, I'm a mosquito magnet. But anyway, my point is that I really, yeah, maybe these podcasts can help, because I think that for a lot of people, to love and be loved is the priority. And at the end of the day, I don't know if I'm ever going to get dance results again, but I will always remember till the end of my life that I shared this truly, truly authentic, deep, nourishing connection with this human being. And I grew so much because of it, and it helped me to learn how to really love myself, and so that I could really love someone else, to really forgive myself for all my past mistakes, so that I could hold space for someone else, and to be true, honest, vulnerable with with myself and with the world. Like, I'll never forget that happened, but I will not remember what placement I had at Royal Albert Hall in October. Like, I know for a fact that if I were to go right now and go and be in a partnership for the sake of dance results only, I think I would have major regrets. I think I would have major regrets. Because it's not like I'm not growing in my dancing. I'm growing in my dancing because I'm growing as a human being. Like it's one to one. And that's actually the last thing I wanted to say is because this has been something that I've been thinking about a lot and talking with some dancers about, actually, who are close friends. I think that it's very, very hard to sustain a dance partnership through thick and thin if you do not love your partner, if you do not really love each other. Now, that doesn't mean sexual love, because we have, dance partnerships like Trolls and Ina and whatever, they're not together romantically, but they have a soul, very deep connection, and from what I can tell, a very deep love for each other. And I think that the reason is because when the going gets tough and you don't have love for each other and you only have a business relationship, like it's easy to, like when a business is not doing well, you split it, you sell the parts and you move on, you cash in, right? Like this is business, but business is so different from dancing, of two people creating something together over a long period of time. And so if you don't love each other and you only dance as a business, you can withstand some failures, but not all of them, and not, in my opinion, to the point where you can really grow as human beings and therefore as dancers, and therefore as a dance partnership, and therefore truly get to the very top. I think the people who have the greatest chance of making it as a dance partnership are the ones where two people truly love each other. The love is very important, because I said to myself, like, would I have stayed here in Italy? Would I have, would I have continued this partnership or whatever if I didn't love him? If we had a really just purely business relationship? I'm not sure. I'm really not sure. But I do love him. He loves me, and we have a very, very healthy, loving relationship. And that's very valuable to me. And it forces me to, if we only had a business relationship, I would have taken that flight to New York City. I think I would have. I wouldn't have changed my mind. So, sorry if that sounded like, advice to date your dance partner. In fact, my advice is don't date your dance partner, at least not too quickly. I think that love takes time to grow, and, I made potentially, no, there's no such thing as mistakes. It's just choices, and then there are consequences, right? Like I said to my partner, I probably was not ready for a healthy relationship at the time that we got into a healthy relationship. Thank God we figured it out, but yeah, don't date your dance partner too soon. I love how he's just like, "Hmm." Anyways, so I will talk more about other things in the podcast as well. Like, I actually have a lot of things I want to speak to you guys about in terms of dancing, in terms of like dealing with the insecurities that I have in my dancing. I'm starting to make headway. Like, things are starting to open up. And I made this post where I'm like, I spend the majority of my life trying to just be good enough, and it's a sad way to have danced for so long. It's a sad way to have lived for so long. It really, ruined my dance partnerships and also my relationships to my dance partners. So yeah. Anyways, bye. Thank you for listening. That was a really long one. And yeah, I hope it helps. Hope it helps. Bye.